how to set up your home environment so that it is conducive to learning. How to set up your home environment so it is conducive to learning. I'm Marina Gabor. I'm a mom, wife, homeschooling mom, speaker, and co founder of Summit Writing Academy. And I am glad that you are here with me today. Maybe you have come to home education by no choice of your own, and maybe you're resenting that just a little bit. Maybe you're thinking, I'm going to be forced to homeschool or home educate my kids this fall because I don't like what is happening. Or perhaps you have actually planned to homeschool, you're excited to homeschool, and you're new, but you're just not sure how to get it all set up and organized. Let's get started. If you are the person who is primarily responsible for your child's education, you need to create a home environment that works for you. A home environment that works for you. Just like, when you're on an airplane, although maybe some of us haven't been on there for a while, and they say to put the mask on yourself before you put it on somebody else. You need to take care of yourself. This is not an uncommon thing to think about. However, when we're thinking about our child's education, sometimes that gets forgotten and we think everything is about my kid. I have to have the best education, the best academics, the best sports, the best for my kid. And we forget about ourselves, and then we burn out and we become resentful. And it's not a positive thing for anybody. So we need to create a home environment that works for us. Now, what are one or two things that, if these things are done in your house, or if you get to do these things, everything else kind of works? One or two things. Just take a minute and think. What helps make your life more peaceful, more calm? What makes you a better person, a better mom, better able to handle the stress of life? Because those one or two things you want to make sure you include in your home environment. Make sure that you include them. Now, if you have a spouse or a partner, you want to ask them, what could we do to make it less stressful for you at home? What can we do to make it less stressful for you when you come home? Maybe they're the primary breadwinner. Maybe they are just a breadwinner and you work out of the home too. But we just want to think about the other adult in the house, if there is one. What would make it less stressful for them? Because we want to include that in our consideration for making a home that has an environment that's conducive to education and is less stressful. Now, if they come with a list of 10 things, you're going to have to say, what are the top one or two things that would make the biggest difference? I know I did this with my husband. I said, hey, you know what? I am managing a business. I'm managing the homeschool. I'm trying to manage the house, and there are only so many hours in a day, and I need some time for myself. And so what are the top two things that would really make a difference for you if I could guarantee that they were done? And so he gave me a list of two things, and we can keep up with those things. And that makes life less stressful for him, which makes life less stressful for everybody. So now we've looked at the adults in the house who are managing the house, the people that are taking care of the household. But now we want to ask our kids, what kinds of things do they enjoy doing, or what kinds of things make it less stressful? What do they enjoy doing the most at home? Because when you're home educating, everybody's together a lot of the time, and it would certainly be nice if they could be doing some of the things that they enjoyed as well, or the things that help them reduce their stress. You're going to find people are more productive if their stress is down. So ask your kids, what would make things happier, less stressful around the house? Once you've got your answer, now you've accounted for everybody and what their needs are. And so you can think, okay, so how can we do these things? Is this reasonable? Can we move forward with this? And these are just some of the things that we're starting to think about as we're planning our home education environment. In this series, if you are looking for advice on curriculum, you're not going to find it. Unless I'm telling you, get your kid to write with Summit Writing Academy, because of course I'm the co-founder, and if it works for your family, we'd love to have you. But it's not, this is not about curriculum. This is about how do we set up our home environment? How do we figure out what our kids are like? And as we go through this series, you'll see it's about the bigger picture. Now, when I first started homeschooling, which was, we're going into our 8th year, and I thought, okay, this is great. I don't really know what I'm doing, but like you, I imagine, I did a bunch of research. So I researched Charlotte Mason, and I researched the classical education model, and I researched about unschooling, and there's all these different things, and your head feels like it's going to explode. There's all of these different philosophies, and the bottom line, it needs to work for your kids. It needs to work for you. It needs to work for your whole family dynamic. And so that's going to maybe change as your kids get older, as you learn more about and settle into home education, if you're going to keep doing that. If you are emergency schooling, forced to home educate right now, and you're like, I don't want to do this long term, you're probably going to have a different style than somebody who wants to dig deep into that home education lifestyle. So when we first started, we set up a schoolroom, and we had it in a building that was not in our home. And so we trudged over there every day, which got old really fast because winter is really long where we live. And I thought, this is silly. There we are putting on all our winter gear so we can go into this other building to heat this other building so we can do this school. And so we stopped. And we brought the desks in the house, and guess what? I have desks in my living room. It's okay. It is what it is. We don't have a big house, but the stress went down. We started to figure out a different flow for our home education. We figured out what environment worked for our family, what worked for each child, what worked for me. And so as you're home educating and figuring out what that's going to look like in the fall, don't worry if you start off super structured and realize we don't want school at home. This isn't working for us. You can change. And you might change several times. I always call it a little bit of an experiment. I mean, you need to stick with something long enough to see if it'll work. But don't be afraid to change it up if it's not working, if everybody is miserable. Because if everybody's miserable, learning is maybe happening, but it's not going to be very effective. So step 1 is figuring out what you want your home environment to be like. Do you want it to be loud? Quiet? Lots of time connecting? Does your house have to be pristine? Can it be messy? What is an acceptable level of mess? And what are the most important things? We like to have a chunk of day that is quiet time. Perhaps your non-negotiable is a clean kitchen. So how do you get to that clean kitchen? What is it that you need to make your house feel like it is at home, at rest. So we've talked about ourselves, we've talked about our kids, we've talked about our spouse, and we now know how to create this home environment. Mutual respect. It's about mutual respect, right? We're talking to our kids as people, we're talking to our spouse, we're knowing what is right for ourselves, and we are all working together. I'm going to give you a list of a few other things to ponder. Before I do, I'm going to expand a little bit on this quiet time. We all need a little downtime. And if it's scheduled, then it's nothing personal. It's not like, oh my goodness, we hate being around each other, so we have to have this quiet time. It's just what we do. And when we first started it, my kids were younger, and I said, you can read, you can sleep, you can think, whatever it is, you just need to be by yourself, having some quiet time, learning how to be alone and do something. And as they've gotten older, the quiet time is actually extended. So now we have a 2-hour quiet time most days in which they're able to pursue some of the things that they enjoy doing, guilt-free. They're not supposed to be doing anything else. And they're doing it by themselves, and it presses the reset button. So even if the morning has been a little squirrely, because we have those days, the quiet time, it just makes this reset. And when everybody reconvenes after the quiet time and we get together, then it's like a fresh start. So if there's one thing I can really encourage you to include as part of your home environment that will make a difference, I would encourage you to include this quiet time. As we wrap up, I'm going to give you a bunch of things to ponder as you start creating this home environment. And remember that it's your home environment. We can look on Pinterest, we can look on Facebook, we can see all of these things, people saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And it's enough to make you go crazy. But at the end of the day, it's about what works in your household. Nobody else is living in your household. So figure out what works for you. And in different seasons and over time, it will change. Here we go. Do you want to have meals together or apart? Some together, some apart? Do you have open conversations about any topic? Are there things that you don't talk about, that are off limits? How do you handle conflict? This is a big one. What does it look like? How are you going to handle it? There will be conflict, guaranteed. And this is where this home education, parenting, you know what? It's the same thing. So we need to figure out, how are we handling these conflicts? And if you have more than one child, there will be sibling rivalry. You can't referee every single thing. So how are we going to train the kids to get along? How can we live harmoniously? How can we resolve conflict successfully? How can we resolve it in a way that helps everybody move forward in a positive way, in a healthy way? How do we handle our child's differences? Perhaps your personalities clash. It's going to be a long journey if we can't figure out how to get along with our own kids. And so we might have to do some reading, do some digging about personalities and conflict resolution. That's okay. It's part of creating the home environment that we want. And it's part of this home education journey. Do you have a culture of reading, or is reading a chore? And this might be reflected from your preferences, because kids pick up what you do. Are you a reader, They might be a reader. What do you promote? What you promote, that's what kind of environment you're going to create. What about chores? Are you the one that does all the chores, all the household? Or are your kids part of that? And I would strongly recommend that household chores, because you live there and you'll be amazed at the number of dishes if you haven't figured that out already. Um, the kitchen, there's always something happening in the kitchen. How is it going to be managed? How are you going to do this? And it shouldn't always fall on you. It is okay to have kids doing chores as part of the daily learning process. Do you have a culture of curiosity and wonder? Or is the curriculum like, let's just do the book, get it done, check the box, that's it? Now, for some kids, that is what they need, and that is what you do. Other kids are curious and they have this insatiable desire to learn new things. What is the culture in your home? Are you the parent and the boss? Are you open to discussion? What is your role? Do your kids see you as a person or just as the parent? How do you relate to your children? How do you want to relate to your children? When you ask them to do something, what happens when they don't do it? And again, this is the parenting part of this home education, right? Things need to happen. So what happens when a child is not listening? Then what are you going to do? Something to think about. They will push back. Are questions permitted? Or do you consider a child impertinent if they ask a question? What kind of environment are you creating? What do all these questions have to do with home education? It seems like lots of them are parenting issues. But the thing is, when you're home educating, you're taking this holistic approach. We're looking at the whole person. We're together pretty much from morning till night, right? Unless they're at some other activity. So when we're planning their education, that is why we're starting with the home environment. What is that home environment? Because that is where all of the education, the home base, the root of all that is happening. Learning can be a messy process. We're connecting things with everyday lives and experiences. So this week, as you were thinking about your home environment, I hope you'll dream a little bit. I hope you'll come up with some ideas about what you want your home environment to be like, to look like, to feel like, what kind of interactions you want to have. That's okay if it feels like, oh, this is pie in the sky. How can I ever make this happen? We need to start somewhere. What is your ideal? Because as you go through your home education journey, you're going to need to cling to that, because some days you're thinking, why am I doing this? I just want to throw in the towel. And then you remember, let's step back. What were we dreaming? What did we want our home to be like? Let's go back to those basics. What do I need? What does my spouse need? What do my kids need? Let's get those. What kind of memories do we want to create? And then you can go from there.